The Downtown Rams podcast is brought to you by Rams On Demand, Seat Giant, Vibe 305, and RWO, Rams World Order. Now enjoy the show.
Down the middle, to the end zone, caught by Brandon Cooks. Shoot your arrows.
It's picks. Nickel Roby Coleman
throws. Enzo caught, touchdown. Tyler Higbee. Cooper Kupp walks it out of the air and gives the Rams the lead. LaMarcus Joyner returns to the lineup with an interception in London. 35-30. Robert Wood, first down 20. 10-5. Touchdown. LA. No, it's Goff who keeps it. And Goff goes crashing into the end zone. Aaron Donald almost beat the football there and comes away with his third sack of the afternoon. Met immediately and sacked. Corey Littleton, have yourself a day. And he gets gobbled up. Savage has to eat it as Michael Brockers picks up the sack. He's decked by Ebu Tom. Picked off. Marcus Peters strutting his stuff. Mark Barron the last 4 weeks has been a Pro Bowler. Oh, it's picked off on the play by John Johnson. After the throw, and we mentioned that is his 8th completed pass in his career. Cousins sacked. Ndamukong Suh. Of all the guys, it's the rookie John Franklin Myers who knocks it out of Cousins' right hand. Todd Gurley, 20, 10, Gurley for MVP. Touchdown LA.
Welcome back, guys, to another Downtown Rams podcast. It's episode 165. I'm your host, Jake Ellenbogen, and I am here to talk a little bit Rams later on in the show, but really this podcast is mainly going to be about our two interviews with Buffalo linebacker Khalil Hodge and Miami offensive tackle Tyree St. Louis. They're both coming into the NFL draft, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch them, throughout their journey. Both options for the Rams. I think when you look at Tyree St. Louis, I think he could definitely be an option, whether or not the Rams want to, kick him in at guard or kick, Joe Noteboom in at guard if, Whitworth ends up retiring. And, I think he could definitely be an option. Very talented and productive player from Miami. And, of course, Khalil Hodge is somebody that I've talked about a lot. A Buffalo linebacker that really just was a tackling machine. And I think the world of him. I think he is one of the best, not talked about prospects in this draft. He is obviously, one of my favorites, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun watching both these guys. I think they're both options for the Rams, and, I guess we'll find out, sooner or later if these guys will end up in horns. But, until then, here is the podcast, and we're going to start off. It's going to be Khalil Hodge's interview, which I did with him kind of a little far back, and, I feel bad, but I'm just happy to get this one out there. And Tyree St. Louis, which I did with Alexis Kraft. So here is the Downtown Rams podcast, and here are our interviews. Enjoy. All right, joining me on the Downtown Rams podcast, Khalil Hodge of Buffalo. He's a stud linebacker. You guys have to know the name, and he was a captain for this 10-4 Buffalo Bulls team. How's it going, Khalil? Thanks for joining the show.
How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. So, really quickly, obviously you guys had a really great season. 10-4. Obviously, you guys win the MAC title. I mean, how would you describe this season as a whole? You didn't win the bowl game, but you can't really take away from what you guys were able to accomplish this year.
Yeah, this year was very special. The group of guys that we had in that locker room, those are bonds that I've created, that we've created, that are going to last a lifetime, and I feel like we played that well on the field. Although we came up short in the MAC championship and the bowl game, stuff like that, we really feel like it was a special year, and like you said, we still have to kind of hold our heads high.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you there. I thought you guys were awesome. I was watching you all year. You, Anthony Johnson, and Tyree Jackson have caught the attention of everyone in the draft world, as I would say it. What can you say about those guys?
those are special talents. You know, those are program changers. You know, those are two guys that work extremely hard and that are extremely talented. You know, Tyree today actually just declared to forego a senior season, and AJ, you know, finished up the senior year with me. Those guys are talented guys, and I wish them the best. I know they're going to do great things in the future.
Yeah, I mean, you all really put on a show, and I mean, obviously, I know people really started to get the Buffalo name out there when Khalil Mack came out, and it's funny you guys share the same first name. I'm sure you get that a lot, but you know, it really started with him. But I mean, you guys really accomplished even more than his team did, and I think you know that's something that needs to be said. And I think you know really what you guys were able to do. It's only going to add to the program long term, which I'm pretty sure you guys realize.
Yeah, definitely. You know, something Coach Leipold says a lot in the locker room is always leave a place better than you found it, and that's kind of what we tried to do as a senior class. Was just trying to move this program forward. You know, we came in and you know things were a little rocky, but like you said, you know, we want to leave it better than we found it, and that's hopefully what we did.
Well, and especially for you because, you know, unfortunately you did go through a rough time losing your younger brother, Kadeem. You know, how were you able to really go through this year facing such a tough situation regarding your family and, you know, playing as well as you did and really putting the team on your back?
Yeah, you know, it was a really rough time. It was a devastating time for my family, and I just had to, you know, just continue to move forward. You know, I know that Kadeem's watching over me, and, you know, I play every game with him in my heart. And, you know, I was just trying to find a way to put a smile on my parents' face. You know, it was a dark time, and football is kind of that light. So that just kind of led me to just keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. That was really that was a touching story. I actually read one of the articles. I forget exactly what site it was, but I read that earlier in the year, and then I saw your post because we follow each other on Twitter, and you know, my heart goes out to you, and I really can't stress that enough because again, it's such a you know tough situation. I've never been through it, or I'm sure many people haven't, and just to see what you were able to do, you know, really setting an example for your teammates because I mean you have that C on your chest for a reason.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, without a doubt. And so moving on, what made you want to play the game of football and eventually pursue a career in it like, you know, you're doing right now?
Probably my father. You know, my dad was my coach, you know, all the way up growing up. And, you know, he's a huge fan of the game, huge love for the game. And he just kind of instilled that in me at a very young age. And, you know, once I put that ball in my hands, I just kind of fell in love with it.
Yeah, it can start from, you know, everyone has their different story. I mean, you know, you could start early on. It could start just something you picked up and you're like, oh, well, I'm good at it, so I'll go at it. I always find that funny, you know, finding how, you know, the origin of how everyone kind of started to pick up this game. But with that being said, you know, obviously you had your start with the game. Was there an idol or a player that you really, you know, watched growing up and wanted to be like?
Yeah. I guess guys like Ray Lewis, you know, was someone that I really looked up to as a player. You know, just the way he leads, the way he plays the game, especially playing middle linebacker. That was probably someone that I really idolized as a kid.
Yeah, that's definitely not a bad one. I mean, he was a phenomenal captain, and you're a captain yourself. How would you, who would you really compare your game to at this moment?
It's hard to say. I'd probably say guys like, maybe like Bobby Wagner from the Seattle Seahawks, Eric Kendricks from the Minnesota Vikings. You know, guys that are just real, you know, have a real nose for the football, and they're making plays all over the field. Those are two guys I'd probably say.
Definitely not bad names. Bobby Wagner, I mean, he was 49 out of 50 votes in All-Pro, almost a unanimous All-Pro, and Eric Kendricks is obviously an established player, so definitely not bad names. And, with that, what would you say is your best skill, so far? I mean, obviously you said nose for the ball, but what would you say is your best skill?
Yeah, I'll probably just say my ability to fill out a play, my ability to find the football. I feel like I kind of have a knack for it, and just the way I kind of diagnose plays, I feel like it gives me an opportunity to get to the ball very fast.
Yeah, I definitely see that when I watch your film. What would you say you'd have to improve on?
I'd probably just say I just want to always continue to become a sideline-to-sideline player. Be able to make plays from hash mark to hash mark, wherever I need to be. So like I said, sideline-to-sideline.
And now, obviously playing at Buffalo, you're not Alabama, you're not LSU, whatever you want to call it, but you're still playing some top-notch opponents, and you're playing some top-notch football. Do you have a chip on your shoulder for that reason?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I've had a chip on my shoulder for quite some time, even before Buffalo, taking the junior college route and things like that. But yeah, being kind of like the underdog type mentality definitely puts a chip on your shoulder.
Yeah, I figured. Most times when I, interview smaller school players, actually one time I interviewed, I believe it was Dalen Williams, and he was saying from Dartmouth, and he's saying, the difference is with the smaller school, they have all the players, they just don't have the depth. And, I think that's a good point, because this is where you guys come from. This is why you have, a Khalil Hodge, and Anthony Johnson, and Tyree Jackson all on the same team. I mean, all these teams, they have at least that one guy, but you guys had three of them, and I'm sure you had more, and I'll dive into that, as time goes on. But it was definitely has been impressive thus far. What teams, if any, so far that you've noticed have scouted you?
I mean, it's kind of hard to say. You see a lot of teams come out to practices and stuff like that. But I mean, I'm not really too sure which teams.
Yeah, that's why it's like, if you notice, I mean, that was the whole point of the question, because most of the time it just seems like there's a bunch of different teams, and being at the Senior Bowl, it's not always easy to tell who's representing who. So I definitely hear you there. With that said, what defensive scheme, if any, would you prefer to be in at the next level?
It really doesn't matter too much to me. Being in a 4-3 at Buffalo, that's something that I'm used to. But I feel like I can also play in a 3-4. Playing Mike or Will. Just being in the box, I feel like I can make plays in either scheme.
Yeah, so you're more of a scheme versatile guy, which are very, very valuable in this league. So I think that's awesome. Obviously you're scheduled to play in the East-West Shrine game on the 19th of January. Is there anything in particular you're trying to show off for scouts and, even fans alike?
Yeah, definitely. I want to show that, I can play for versatile talent. It's not the fact that I did what I did because I'm at Buffalo. I did what I did because I feel like I'm a good football player, and I'm one of the better linebackers in this draft class. So I want to just go into the East-West Shrine, and just do me. I'm be very comfortable, confident. I'm just gonna go out there and play football.
Yeah, absolutely. And last year, a good representation of this. I was at the Senior Bowl last year covering it for Downtown Rams, and a lot of the guys that were, first added, because I know you were a Senior Bowl watch list guy coming into the year, and I don't know how you didn't get in, but that's beyond the point. Last year, being there, you saw all these different guys leave, had injuries, left early, quit early, whatever. There were a few call-ups, including Doris Fountain, who's now actually on the Colts. He had a huge turnout at the East-West Shrine game, and so they called him up. Is that something that would be considered on your mind if you were given the invitation?
Yeah, definitely. That would definitely be something I would consider. I just have to talk it over with my family, with my agent, things like that. But I'm really not too worried about that. I'm excited to be in the East-West Shrine game, and whatever happens, happens. I just want to go out there and show the skills off best of my ability.
Yeah, without a doubt. The Shrine Game's awesome. The Senior Bowl's awesome. There's another one, the Collegiate Bowl, I believe. I think, having these all-star games are perfect after the season. I understand, some prospects don't want to play in them. They don't feel like they really have anything to earn. But with, in your case, you're getting to, I think this will probably be on NFL Network if I'm not mistaken. So, you'll get a ton of exposure.
Yeah.
You're going to have, obviously a ton of scouts. And, that's the thing. Playing at Buffalo, now you're playing in the East-West Shrine Game and you're playing in front of all those peers. I think that'll definitely help you.
Yeah, definitely. I just need the opportunity, that amount of exposure, Like I said, I can't wait to get on a even level playing field.
Yeah, I definitely hear you there. So, for my listeners that do not know you, who is Khalil Hodge?
Khalil Hodge is a kid coming from Antioch, who grew up loving the game of football. Was raised by both parents, and lived in the same house for his entire life. Had a good high school career. Took the junior college route. Had two FCS offers out of high school. Decided not to take them. Went to San Francisco for a semester. Got the opportunity to go across the country, fly out to Buffalo. There I kind of really got a chance to make a name for myself and be a part and really changing the program, And now I'm getting ready for this next level and hoping to become a 2019 NFL draft pick.
I love it, Khalil. Hey, thank you so much, man. I appreciate your time, and I'm a fan for life. Let's stay in touch.
Yeah, let's do it. Thank you again.
Absolutely. And stay healthy. Just stay healthy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Take care, Khalil.
Okay, you too.
All right, guys. Joining the podcast, we have Tyree St. Louis, offensive tackle, Miami. How's it going, man? Thanks for joining the show.
It's going great. A beautiful day down here in Pensacola. How's it down there with you guys?
Good. We're good. We're really excited to have you on and ready to get this thing rolling.
Absolutely.
Well, just to kind of start this off, I guess just tell us a little bit about yourself. When did you start playing football? And when was it that you kind of started to consider, hey, I could actually play in the NFL one day?
Oh, well, I'd always wanted to play football growing up. It was just going up to Tampa Bay. They didn't really have the unlimited weights for teams until I was about 14. So I just kind of just waited and just started working out. And then I just joined my high school team my freshman year. I always had like a big aspiration to play in the NFL. It was always a dream from being a little kid. I just had to put a pause on my dream for a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm sure, like you said, it was always an aspiration to play in the NFL. Did you have a favorite NFL player growing up?
No, not really. Definitely being in Tampa Bay, the Bucks were a really big thing, especially when they were good earlier in the days. But I just enjoyed watching football, and because I was deprived from it, it seemed like everyone was my favorite player.
Oh, well, that's a really good question and a really good answer. Now, I have to ask you, because you chose to play at Miami U, and, obviously it's a great destination, and there's been so many, phenomenal players that have come from there. But what made you choose Miami U? Because you were a highly sought-after recruit. I believe you were a 4-star recruit coming out of high school. So, what is your reasoning for sticking with Miami?
Well, it actually came down to a lot of things. One, they were definitely a great team at the time. They had a lot of aspirations. There was a great coach, a great offensive line coach. They had always had great offensive linemen coming out. They're a very good academic school, one of the top private schools or schools in general in the entire nation. And they're a great team close to home. So that was one big thing for me, making sure that all of my family would be able to come down to my games.
Absolutely. And, you mentioned great coach, and he may not have been there at the time, but Mark Richt ended up taking over for Miami, and he's one of the best coaches in college football in recent memory, anyway. And what was it like to play under Coach Richt?
It was amazing playing for Coach Richt. Coach Richt actually recruited me to Georgia before he was even at Miami, so I had known him for years before I went to his camps when I was a kid. And even when I was 12, 13, 14, I've been to Georgia a few times. Well, playing for him in college was definitely an amazing thing. He's an amazing coach and an even more amazing person. He's very smart. He knows exactly what he wants, and he's going to try to get the best out of every player.
Yeah, and obviously playing at Miami, you played against a lot of tough competitors. Who would you say is the toughest player that you faced in college?
Probably my junior year, Josh Sweat from FSU was probably my toughest player I ever went against.
That was my guy. I loved Josh Sweat last year in the draft, and I saw so much there, and I think it's really funny that you bring him up because he's yet to really get an opportunity in the NFL, but he's on with the Eagles, and I'm sure his time will be coming soon. But with that being said, what was your favorite college game that you played in? Because obviously you played against a lot of tough opponents. Is there one game that really stands out to you?
Definitely my junior year, beating Florida State at home. Well, at their home. That was definitely it.
One.
And then also this year you had the opportunity to participate in the East-West Shrine game. So just tell us a little bit about that and what that experience was like for you.
Oh, that was an amazing experience. It was kind of like the icing on the cake, being able to come back so close to home and play my last college game ever. It was definitely there with some of the best competitors, the best coaches. It just all went perfect for me. And I feel like I performed very well. Got to showcase my skills and my versatility, especially playing on the offensive line. So it was a great thing for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the Shrine game, you went up against, I would say you went up against a lot of talent. And, I saw that. Obviously, Hollins out of Oregon ended up taking home the MVP of the Shrine game. But, who was your toughest matchup that you went up against, at the Shrine game?
Not even the game. I'll probably say I feel like our team definitely had much better pass rushers and just defensive lineman, period. I'll say, I can't think of his name, but a defensive end from Oregon State. He was in for Oregon State. Mm-hmm. Oregon State.
I feel like that guy's been mentioned twice, and no one can remember his name.
Yeah, it's escaping me.
It just, I don't know why. I don't know why I just can't think of his name. He was a great guy, great athlete, great competitor, and he was good at everything. He was long, he was quick, he was great at rushing the passes, great defending the run, even for his size.
Yeah, I was gonna say Jordan Brailford, but that's Oklahoma State. So, yeah, I know. I know you're thinking of, the names escaping me as well, but yeah, definitely a lot of a great competition at that East-West Shrine game, and it sounds like it was just a really cool experience for everybody who went and got to play. And then a question that I have is just, as someone that played tackle, how do you prepare to face a speed rusher versus preparing to play someone who's considered more of a power rusher?
Well, basically now, it's like pretty much like the league that we're playing in now, and the athleticism of these guys, a lot of these guys can always do both. So it kind of makes things a little bit difficult. You have to get ready for a speed and a power guy, especially being in the ACC. They're both. It mainly just kind of comes down to breaking down their film and just focusing on my techniques. I know with the right technique that I use and all my natural abilities, if I do everything correctly, there's on any day or any play that can beat me. And then it just comes down to finding out what they are, their best plays, their worst plays, their games, their worst games, and just breaking it down from there.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. It's very methodical in planning all of that. Before I ask the next question, by the way, it was Jordan Brailford from Oklahoma State. Or no. Yeah, I think that's who it was, right? Oklahoma State, or you said Oregon State?
So, Oregon State, I'm trying to think.
I mean, it's an orange. It's an
I
orange
just, yeah, I
uniform.
remember
So.
it's both. Yeah, it's definitely a orange OSU on the side of his helmet. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, because I'm thinking it's that guy, so I'm thinking you were right on, Alexis, but I mean, could be wrong. I was looking through the roster. I for the life of me, I can't find it. But with that being said, what would you say is your biggest strength as a player?
Definitely say my versatility and my measurables. Perfect height, perfect weight, great arm length, and natural flexibility.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. You're definitely a guy who is versatile and a guy who I don't think many defensive players look forward to going up against because they know they're going to have a hard time. And something that I just like to ask is, what's something that you most are looking to improve on, say as the draft nears, and a personal goal that you set for yourself, or just something that you want to get better at?
Well, mainly just set a personal goal for myself. I want to come into the league and just become a sponge, take up as much knowledge from as many people as I can. All of these guys in the league, they're there for a reason, and they're going to stay there. So now it's just my job. I'm coming in, trying to compete with the best of the best, learn what they do, learn how they prepare, and learn how to dominate any defensive lineman I go against or any defense.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the way to be. But, obviously we're coming close to the NFL draft. I mean, we're not right around the corner. There's still, plenty to go, but we're getting there, and it's interesting. So, I have to ask you an NFL-based question. I mean, who do you want to stonewall the most in the NFL?
Honestly, it seems like everyone has a target for me. There's not really any specific person. I'm not going to upscale anyone or downscale anyone. My main thing is whoever I'm going against, treat them the exact same, whether they're the best player in the league or the worst player in the league.
Yeah, that's a good answer. There's definitely going to be some fierce competition there, and I'm sure that you'll get to face guys of all skill sets and all talents. And is there any quarterback that you'd like to block for most in the NFL, or any quarterback that you admire a lot?
Definitely, if I could hook back, I'd definitely like to hook back up with him. A great guy, great team.
Hey, Tyree, you cut out there. Who was the quarterback?
Brad Kaya from the University of Miami 2 years ago.
There we go.
Yeah, he is a great guy. Yeah, that's definitely a good pick.
That's one of those guys I really liked in the draft as well. But we have to ask you, because we are a Rams podcast, have you met with the Los Angeles Rams during this interview process?
Yes, I did. I met with them a few times at the East-West Shrine game, during the practices, at night during the meetings, and I talked with them on the phone one time after the game was over. Just talking about mainly my process, how things went the game, and just getting a little bit of quick info on me.
Well, that's awesome. We certainly like to hear that, because we're big fans of you, and obviously Rams fans. So if you ended up in Horns, that would certainly be something that we would be thrilled about, and I think a lot of people who listen to our podcast will be thrilled about as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just kind of wrap it up, the question that I'm most curious to know is, who is Tyree St. Louis the player, and who is Tyree St. Louis the person?
Well, for that question, it kind of goes a little bit hand in hand. A lot of traits that I definitely take onto the field, I definitely take off of the field. The only thing that may be different may be certain aggressiveness and certain thinking process that's necessary for football. But I'm a very detailed person. I care about the game. I care about my faith, my family, and I care about each and every one of my teammates. And whether it be my teammates or just friends outside of football, I definitely love what I do. I really focus on staying healthy, trying to take care of my body, whether it be nutrition or mental health. And I say that's probably the main thing. It definitely goes much deeper than football, and I try to focus on that.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree that, there's certainly traits that, I'm sure that come out on the football field that probably aren't present in everyday life and vice versa. But overall, I think it sounds like you're a pretty grounded person and, you work hard, and any football team I think would be lucky to pick you up.
Thank you.
Hey, Tyree, thank you so much for taking the time. And again, I know how busy this whole process is, and whether or not you're working in the gym nonstop or you're working on different mechanical, technical things, or you're speaking with teams, or we really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. Have a good one, Tyree. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
All right, guys. So that was Khalil Hodge and Tyree St. Louis. Hope you guys enjoyed. It was definitely a lot of fun doing those interviews for sure. I have to thank Alexis again, who isn't here, obviously, because this is more of a quicker podcast. But, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, I can't stress enough. These interviews have been awesome. We started this in 2017. We started Downtown Rams in 2016, and I think it's been going really well. You look at the numbers, and 2017 we get around 10 interviews, and then 2018 because of the Senior Bowl we get around up to 20ish or close to 20, and now. I mean, we're looking at probably hitting the 50 mark and then some, for prospects. So it's been a lot of fun, but it's really not about quantity. It's about quality. And I think the key here is, every guy that we bring on here always adds a little something in this podcast. I mean, we're going to have a ton of prospects coming on, and, a lot of them are they have so many awesome stories, and, they have their connections to the Rams. Some are Rams fans, as you learned from, somebody like Tavon Coney, obviously, Colin Saunders, just loving Aaron Donald, and, that's why he wears number 99. And there's another guy coming up that, literally was in the building when Jared Goff was about to leave Cal. So it's a lot of fun. Again, we're just going to keep doing it. We're going to keep doing the interviews, whether it be a college player, you might see a free agent. You actually will see a free agent, a cornerback that started for a playoff team. He's going to be coming on the podcast, so it'll be a lot of fun with that. And we'll have some Rams legends and all sorts of media. So just obviously you gotta keep listening, because you never know who's going to come on this show until you get that alert. And if you didn't get the alert, that means you're not subscribed. And I mean, I'm not going to judge you, but you might want to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, however you get your podcasts. You can find us all over there. If you're listening to this, you probably already found us, so I would assume. So, if you're just a friend listening to someone else's podcast, that's where you can find us. But, keep it, with Downtown Rams. Keep it, downtownrams.com. We have a bunch of draft profiles coming out, as well as mock drafts and, all sorts of content for your off-season Rams ears and eyes, whether it be podcasts, whether it be live video that we started doing consistently on Instagram, just all of that. So it's been a lot of fun, but, I do want to touch a little bit on what is going on, because right now the Rams did they overhauled the coaching staff. Obviously it looks as though, at least for now, I don't want to knock on wood or anything, but or I do want to knock on wood rather. Aubrey Pleasant is here to stay, at least for this season. Wade Phillips' contract does expire at the end of 2019 season, and Aubrey Pleasant looks like he's going to stay after the Bengals hired defensive back coach from the Giants. So that will be interesting. And, furthermore, I think the real interesting thing here is how Bill Johnson, the defensive line coach, has seemingly disappeared. Because it looks like, I believe his name is Eric Henderson. He was an assistant defensive line coach for the crosstown rival Chargers, and it looks like he's taking over. As well as the Rams just announced that they were officially giving the tight end job to Wade Phillips's kid, Wes Phillips. So pretty cool stuff there, obviously. But it's not a ton of news because it's gonna pick up, and you do have to wait for it. The Rams were rewarded with with 2/3 and a 1/7, so they got 2/3 due to losing Sammy Watkins and Trumaine Johnson free agency, and they got a 7th round pick for longtime safety and special team contributor Cody Davis. So they didn't get the other 7th rounder. The NFL doesn't give out too many picks, so that's why they didn't get the 7th rounder. But they would have gotten a 7th rounder if the NFL gave out unlimited amount of picks, and they would have gotten that for Derek Carrier, but they just fell short, and it's just 2 3s and a 7. So not bad haul for the Rams. I think it's really something many expected. I think the Rams are pretty much guaranteed that, and that's why they made the trade for Dante Fowler, which included their 3rd round pick to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, it's definitely, something to consider. And, as we continue to come through this whole, free agency, draft process and all that, we're just going to keep giving you guys content. So, I think you really have to watch out for free agency, because that's really going to dictate what they do in the draft. And everything we're speculating on and talking about, it's not a foregone conclusion. Like I mentioned in last night's podcast, if you haven't heard it already, we had the creator of Horns Up Graphics on, and basically what I said is, when you look at the Rams in post 2017 losing that game to the Falcons, they came out reckless abandon. I mean, they go out and they make a trade for Brandon Cooks. They go out, they make a trade for Aqib Talib and Marcus Peters, and sign Ndamukong Suh, and that was a Rams team that had just tasted winning for the first time. So they come out of the gates firing on all cylinders, and then they start off undefeated and all that, and clearly that went well. So you can only imagine when you look at this front office, and they haven't really had a hard time going out and making the big move. I think it's going to be a really interesting offseason, seeing as they were that close to the Lombardi. And, it's really, in what was a 13-3 game, it was really a 1-possession game all the way. So, you have to look at that, and you have to think that the Rams, although you don't want to change too much, there's going to be change, and I think there's going to be upgrading. And, when you win like that, and when you play in a market like LA, and you have a head coach like Sean McVay, and obviously a defensive coordinator, a players coach, and Wade Phillips, and all that, I think, and obviously players like Jared Goff and Todd Gurley and Aaron Donald, I mean, players are going to want to kind of flock to that location. And I think it's safe to say the Rams are in a little bit of cap trouble, because they do have to bring back guys like Dante Fowler and Roger Saffold and such. But really, what it comes down to is if Whitworth were to retire, that pretty much free up a ton of money. And they could obviously move on from Mark Barron. They can move on from Michael Brockers, although not as easily as Mark Barron. And obviously I think John Sullivan is a candidate as well. So they could trade Tyler Higbee. There are ways to move money around and make things happen. And when you're that close to a Super Bowl, but you're also kind of selling yourself to other players around the league. I mean, when you have guys like OBJ, who just signed a massive deal with the Giants, coming out and saying, it's just different over here, and clearly talking about the Rams, it's eye-opening. So, I think that's one thing to really hold on to as a Rams fan, and, any fan in general. I mean, when you're looking at the Rams, this is not, the same Rams team that people would call the Sosar or the Lambs. I mean, this is a team that is legitimate, and they're going to be a contender for a long time. And regardless if they, sign Jared Goff long-term this year or next year, or if they move on from quarterback, I think you really have to believe in Sean McVay. You have to believe in Les Snead, because, it's really hard to find that coach and general manager duo that works. And I think when you look at this, I think it absolutely does work. So, just quick thoughts on that. And, it's going to be a lot of fun. So I think this offseason has a lot to look forward to. There are definitely players that are getting cut that intrigue me and intrigue, other Rams fans and such. And, I just think, more and more as we get closer to it, I think the Rams will do some surprising things. If you're somebody that is more about the nostalgia, you might not like this offseason because you might have to make the tough move to move on from somebody like Michael Brockers, who can save you $10 million, and Mark Barron, and obviously LaMarcus Joyner, who hits free agency. So I don't see them using the tag on anybody other than Fowler. I mean, that's going to be expensive as well. So, we'll see. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun, and there's a lot left in store. And just like our interviews, I mean, we have plenty. I think we're interviewing more than 10 prospects this week. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and we're just going to keep doing it. And, obviously the combine's right around the corner. So, we're going to talk about the combine. It's just going to be a great draft season. It's going to be a great off season. And I mean, this is what you guys ultimately deserve. You deserve a great off season, a great draft season, and, any season, because, obviously I'm really thankful for the Rams to be able to go to the Super Bowl, but they didn't get it done. And, this fan base really deserves that Lombardi. I mean, when you talk about what, this fan base has gone through, it's pretty obvious. You're more fortunate than others, for sure. But, I will say that this fan base is a little underrated to the mainstream eye. And, I think slowly but surely, the Rams are going to kind of shape themselves into what the Patriots are today. And that may not, come overnight. And it really didn't, because, the Rams took time for them to build. I mean, while they were good enough to make the playoffs last year, they weren't good enough to, win their first playoff game. And then, this year they win all their playoff games, and they get to the Super Bowl and they lose. So they lost their first Super Bowl. This might be, just the fact that, Sean McVay, he'll lose for the first time in, every scenario, went up against his former team and went up against his former mentor. And, they remember that. I mean, Sean McVay's first loss was against Washington. You can't see Sean McVay ever losing to Washington again. So it could be just that, where, he's somebody that has to dip his feet in the water, and, he may not, obviously he may get burned a little bit. It might be a little hot, might be a little cold, whatever. Maybe hot tub water or pool water that's really cold. But the fact of the matter is, this guy's going to keep trucking along. And, I really like the way this team looks for the long term. There's still some question marks, and there's no guarantee that guys like Marcus Peters won't be moved on from, and there's no guarantee that the Rams have, already finished what they were going to do as far as trading and whatnot. I could definitely see them making a blockbuster move. And, I think this is going to be, again, just kind of resonating off of what I said earlier, a really valuable and special offseason. So, the whole point of all this is, you follow football all the way around. You follow it, all year long. You're watching the AAF. You're doing it all. And, you're a true football fan. And, I think it's really important to get enthused by, the combine and the Senior Bowl and all that, because it's all a process. This is all must-watch TV, at least in my opinion. I'm sure many would agree with me. So, again, enjoy it. Enjoy the process. And the Rams will be back, and it's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to keep doing these interviews and get you guys more and more in tuned on who's out there and what their personality's like, and if they make sense for the Rams, and if they sound like a Ram. And so far I think every person we put out there really sounds like they could be a Ram, and they all in some case or another make sense. So I think that's going to do it though. Before I completely end the podcast, I do want to say thank you so much for tuning in. Means a lot anytime you guys click that, whatever it is, on Instagram or on, Twitter, on Facebook, or on iTunes. We just really appreciate when you listen. So means a lot. If you could pass this along to someone else, that's kind of your homework, I guess. Like, if you really like what you hear, be sure to tell somebody. If you told one person every time you listen to a podcast, we would be in really good shape. So it's kind of like that. And, we've actually received a ton, I won't say a ton, but a little bit of, a small amount of questions regarding how you could get involved with Downtown Rams. And, there's been things like, is there any way I could collab with you guys? Is there any way I could come on your podcast? Is there any way I could, write articles for you guys? Any way I could do videos, I could, make different graphics. And, quite honestly, there is. We're pretty open, always have our DMs open in Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We also have a Gmail account if you want to email us so it would be downtownrams@gmail.com. That's pretty much where we operate. And, I just also want to point out that, there were a couple people that were interested in donating to us on one of our Instagram lives, or at least mentioned it. We weren't really a huge fan of that because we don't want to come off as we need your money. But if you really would like to be a part of this journey and you like what we're doing and what we're putting out, and you want to kind of support us and help us, build more content and, upgrade the quality of the content and just keep creating, if you do want to do that, one, we really appreciate it. And two, you can do that at our Patreon account. I don't have the actual link, but we will have links posted on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever. So if you do want to get involved in that, we are going to have a tier system set up in case anyone does. We do record interviews in advance. So what we're thinking about doing is if you want to, get interviews before we put them into podcasts, and we do have quite a few in the back end right now. If you want to be the first one to listen to them, if you can't wait, and we understand, if you want to, donate, say $5, $10, pledge that to Patreon, well, we'll start making that exclusive, and, we'll start putting that out. Otherwise, you would have to, wait until the podcast came out. So it's really something that we kind of feel like we'll add on. So if you're interested in something like that, definitely, if you need information or anything like that, just give us, a DM and just ask us what's going on and everything. Because, at the end of the day, we're not about, starting a GoFundMe, like, please give me money, we're more than that. We've operated, fine without, donations or anything, but, I feel like I've been getting asked this a little bit, and, again, if you want to donate, awesome. If you don't, totally get it. We appreciate any bit of, donation you do, whether it's your time or it's your money. I mean, it's really impressive on both ends. We can't thank you enough. And, that's really all I'm going to say on that. I'll mention it a little bit more, each podcast, and, push it just in case anyone's interested, but, I'm not going to beg people. We've done too much in such a short amount of time to start begging for money. It's just a blast doing it. I'll do it for free if I have to. It's really no big deal for me. Love doing it. Love being able to connect with you guys, and just really excited for, the future. I think Downtown Rams is about to hit a really big, kind of a really big peak. I won't say we are going to peak, because that's kind of signaling the end, and kind of there's always, the fall, but I don't see there being a fall. I think really it's just stairs that we're going to keep climbing, and we're going to keep, trying to get better and better and better. And, any suggestions, we'll put a suggestion box on our site. Really just open to all your opinions, and we really appreciate you. So with that being said, I'm Jake Ellenbogen. This has been the Downtown Rams podcast. Once again, I want to thank Alexis Kraft for being awesome and doing all these interviews with me, and thank Tyree St. Louis as well as Khalil Hodge, because they're both awesome as well. And go definitely watch their film, give them a follow. Just be supportive. I mean, these are guys that you could see in a Rams uniform, so it's no joke. And, again, we really appreciate, everybody involved, all the time that they give, whether you're listening to the podcast or, participating in it. So, thanks again, guys. This has been the Downtown Rams podcast, and it's been episode 165. We'll be back tomorrow and the next day and probably the next day, and we're going to keep doing this. So thanks again, guys, and take care. Hello, listeners. Do you have a local business in or near Los Angeles? Are you trying to promote that said local business? Well, the Downtown Rams podcast is open to any and all business sponsorships. For details and any inquiries, please contact us at downtownrams@gmail.com, or you can direct message us on any social media platform that we currently use. Horns up.